Who Let Him Cultivate Immortality. Chapter 1. An auspicious day for travel, not for cheating. Lunar calendar, second month, second day, auspicious for travel. A steady rain pattered down, splashing against the earth to release the scent of damp soil, rippling across lake surfaces, and pelting the heads of passers-by, drawing muttered curses. Who said today was auspicious for travel? It rains the moment I step out, grumbled Lu Yang, regretting not bringing a raincoat. This was his first long journey, and he was unprepared for the sudden downpour. Soaked to the bone, his shoes caked in mud, every step felt like the ground itself was mocking him. He had to wrench his feet free from the mire. The rhythmic clip-clop of hooves approached from behind. Lu Yang turned to see a horse-drawn carriage nearing him. Strangely, it had no driver. The old horse seemed to know the way on its own. What a remarkable creature, Lu Yang marveled. The horse's forehead bore patches of snake-like scales, marking it as a rare hybrid beast. Though he couldn't grasp its true value, he knew such a steed was beyond his humble means. Brother, strolling in the rain is quite poetic, but why not join me inside? A jovial voice called from the carriage. Lu Yang accepted the offer, yanking his foot from the mud and scrambling aboard. My apologies for the intrusion. I'm Lu Yang, he said cautiously, mindful of his soggy, mud-streaked clothes. Meng Jingzhou, replied the carriage's owner, a boisterous, cheerful youth who seemed at ease with anyone. Are you here for the Wendazong trials too? Just trying my luck. Meng Jingzhou laughed. Brother Lu, no need for modesty. If you were truly just trying your luck, you wouldn't be trudging through rain to get there. Lu Yang flushed. Who wouldn't want to join Wendazong? Wendazong, one of the 5 great immortal sects of the central continent, stood as a titan among cultivation sections. Today's disciple recruitment had drawn countless hopefuls, Lu Yang and Meng Jingzhou among them. Lu Yang had crossed into this world years ago, orphaned early and sustained by meager inheritances and neighbors' kindness. In his small town, he'd heard storytellers speak of immortals challenging heaven's gates, river demons flooding lands hundreds of miles away, righteous sect disciples slaying fiends with flying swords, and disheveled Taoists swindling crowds before being arrested midair by authorities. Thus, he'd realized, this was no ordinary world, nor any dynasty he knew. Here, individual power reigned supreme, a world of immortal cultivation. His goal was simple: seek the Tao, master longevity, and join Wendazong. Not out of preference, but necessity, it was the only sect near his home. Through their conversation, Lu Yang learned Meng Jingzhou hailed from a cultivation clan, his knowledge far surpassing Lu Yang's. Wendazong recruits mortals under 16. Most sects follow this rule, Meng Jingzhou explained. The cultivation path is treacherous. Qi refining, foundation building, golden core, nascent soul, spirit transformation, void refining, union, and tribulation crossing. Each realm is a bottleneck, filtering out 90%, sometimes 99% at each stage. Talent, luck, wisdom, spiritual roots. Speaking of, Brother Lu, do you know your spiritual root? Wendazong isn't picky, but even they won't take trash-tier roots. Lu Yang frowned. He'd only heard of spiritual roots from storytellers. No idea. What about you? Meng Jingzhou looked troubled. My clan tested me, but the elders just said my talent was heaven-defying, and I'd easily join a great sect. They refused to elaborate. My parents looked even gloomier when I asked. Lu Yang guessed. Maybe your route is too extraordinary. A danger unless protected by a powerhouse like Wendazong. My thoughts exactly. Meng Jingzhou clapped Lu Yang's shoulder, thrilled by their shared brilliance. As rain drummed louder outside, Lu Yang felt grateful for the ride. Stop! Meng Jingzhou suddenly shouted. The old horse clopped to a halt. The carriage, a magical artifact, allowed Meng Jingzhou to see outside. A woman walked in the rain ahead, much like Lu Yang earlier. Sister, heading to Wendazong? The rain's fierce. Care to ride? He called. Surprised but agreeable, the woman boarded, and both youths froze. Meng Jingzhou had seen beauties, but none like her. Lu Yang's reference point was the pretty widow next door, though he'd never admit any interest. She resembled an ethereal lotus, dressed in white, poised, with luminous eyes and a golden bell bracelet chiming softly at her wrist. Yunji thanks you both, she said, her voice clear as spring water. Lu Yang whispered, Brother Meng, why is she dry? Could she be a demon? In stories, demons often posed as beauties to ensnare youths. While Lu Yang dripped like a drowned rat, Yunji remained pristine. Meng Jingzhou shrugged. Probably a rain-repelling treasure, common among noble clans. He wasn't worried. No demon would dare provoke Wendazong on its turf. Are you here for the trials, Miss Yun? I am. Meng Jingzhou grinned. I've bought the trial details from a Wendazong elder. Care to hear? Lu Yang stared. You never mentioned this. Yunji blinked. But isn't that cheating? Meng Jingzhou waved dismissively. This carriage blocks even ancient cultivators' divine senses. We're safe. In that case, Yunji smiled. Please enlighten us. Lu Yang leaned in. 3 tests, Meng Jingzhou began. First, spiritual root assessment, no shortcuts. Second, character. A runaway carriage heads toward 5 people. You can divert it to kill one instead. What do you choose? Divert it, Lu Yang answered instantly. Meng Jingzhou gaped. But choosing to kill one makes you responsible. How? No time to ponder. Lu Yang cut in. By your hesitation, all 5 die. The test isn't about numbers. It's decisiveness. In cultivation, a moment's delay means death. Meng Jingzhou's eyes lit up. Brilliant. Third test, honesty. A truth-detecting mirror. Lie and you're out. Easy enough if warned. Lu Yang nodded. They strategized until satisfied. Yunji watched, amused. Thank you, young hero Lu, she said as Lu Yang noticed the rain had stopped. Outside, sunlight bathed blooming fields, as if a sword had cleaved storms from clear skies. Ahead loomed Wendazong's mountain, gilded in light, its protective array repelling rain. Mythical beasts and immortal tools converged at its base. Heavens! This dwarfs my family's estate, Meng Jingzhou muttered, awed. Lu Yang stayed silent. From afar, the mountain had seemed ordinary. Now, its immensity choked him with dread. Dozens of cultivators hovered above, Ori suppressed but still oppressive. Core disciples, someone whispered. Future seniors. As Lu Yang turned to check Yunji's reaction, she stepped forward. White lotuses bloomed beneath her feet, forming a path through the crowd. Gasps erupted. Elders hushed juniors. The core disciples bowed deeply as Yunji reached them. With a raised hand, she addressed the crowd. My apologies for the wait. I am Wendazong's head disciple and today's examiner. Let the trials begin. Her gaze lingered on the stunned duo. She had come for Wendazong's trials, not as a candidate, but as the invigilator. Chapter 2. The Single Spiritual Root. Lu Yang and Meng Jingzhou only had one thought running through their minds. We're doomed. How could we be discussing cheating in front of the examiner? Senior sister Yunji acted as if she hadn't noticed their plan at all. With just one quick glance, she turned her attention to organizing the exam. It was clear that she held a high position among the disciples of Wendaozong. Everyone obeyed her orders without question. Outside, the disciples of Wendaozong were well-known, respected, and considered the chosen of heaven. All these gifted young people followed her commands without any defiance, showing just how high her status was. The innate constitution is the first barrier on the path to immortality. Without a strong constitution, no matter how many resources you pour in, you cannot achieve immortality. The first part of this test is to examine your innate constitution. Everyone, please come forward one by one. If you lack confidence in your own constitution, you may leave. No one left. Those who came to take the Wendaozong exam already knew their own strengths. It was rare to see someone like Lu Yang, who only came because Wendaozong was close to home, hoping to try his luck. Wendaozong's method was designed to stop those whose constitutions did not meet their standards from sneaking in. Usually, they use a root stone to test the constitution, a big and obvious stone. But judging from the empty space in front of Wendaozong today, it was clear that they were not using the root stone. A disciple from Wendaozong sat at the front. His name was Dai Bufan. He practiced a very special technique. By letting spiritual energy flow in a person's body, he could tell what kind of innate constitution they had, what method they used to cultivate, and even where their life gate was located, making him very effective in battle. Just like an old doctor checking a pulse, Dai Bufan simply placed 2 fingers on someone's wrist to accurately determine their innate constitution. Golden water fire triple spiritual roots? Not bad. Please, come forward. Water fire dual spiritual roots. Good. Waterwood dual spiritual roots. Your foundation was damaged before. You must have suffered a serious injury at the age of 12. Normally, that would leave a problem, but fate had other plans. You met a kind master who healed you with excellent medical skills, fixing your foundation. The man was a little shocked. not expecting Dai Bufan to be so accurate. When I was 12, my mother died from illness. My stepmother held all the power and was afraid that my presence would affect her son's status. So she schemed against me. I fell into a coma, and when I woke up, I was fine. My father later told me that a master happened to pass by, saved me, and left without giving his name. After that man left, another Wendaozong disciple stepped forward to congratulate Dai Bufan. You only took a pulse and managed to tell the whole story, as if you had seen it all yourself. Seen your brother die, your skills are impressive. Congratulations. Dai Bufan replied lightly, Oh, it's nothing. That master was actually me. I was in a hurry on my journey and forgot to leave my name after saving him. As he spoke, Dai Bufan waved to the next candidate. 18 years old? You're over the age limit. Please go back. A cute little novice monk, led by an older monk, approached Dai Bufan and bowed respectfully. Dai Bufan gave him a quick look and then tossed him back to the senior monk. What is a novice from Xiankong Temple doing here? You carry the mark left by the abbot of Xiankong Temple. Go back to your Xiankong Temple. I thought Xiankong Temple was one of the 5 immortal sects? Lu Yang whispered to Meng Jingzhou. Meng Jingzhou nodded and said seriously, Xiankong Temple has the fewest disciples among the 5 immortal sects. At its smallest, there were only the abbot and 1 disciple. At most, there are fewer than 10. Even though this little monk hasn't started cultivating, he is already a disciple of Xiankong Temple, which means his Buddha nature must be very strong. He watched as the little monk was taken away by a senior from Xiankong Temple, thinking, I always believed I would rise above everyone in the future of cultivation, but it seems there are people who can still rival me. Lu Yang asked, Aren't you worried that Miss Yunji will kick us out? What to worry about? Haven't you read those stories? A big sect ignores true talent, falsely accuses a gifted youth, kicks him out, and then that youth, feeling ashamed, works even harder, meets many opportunities, and eventually soars to great heights. So much that the big sect has no choice but to look up to him. Lu Yang was silent for a moment before saying, But it seems Miss Yunji doesn't need to frame us. That's true. Then Meng Jingzhou grew a bit anxious. Your internal energy flows on its own continuously. Judging by your clothes, you don't seem to come from a noble family of cultivation. Could it be that you accidentally ate a Qingmu immortal fruit in your youth? Please come forward. Your physique is interesting. Dai Bufan placed his finger on the arm of a burly man with bronze skin. His eyes lit up. An ancient barbarian bloodline. I haven't seen one for a long time. The burly man was tall and strong, with a shiny bald head and skin that shone in the sunlight. By his looks, one might think he was 25 or 26, but Dai Bufan did not question his age, which meant he must be under 16. Lu Yang could only say, His development is really impressive. The crowd murmured. The ancient barbarian bloodline was once very powerful, capable of moving mountains and swallowing the sun and moon, reaching its peak before fading away over time. The central continent had not seen an ancient barbarian bloodline for a long time. Everyone thought it had disappeared, but now one has appeared in the Wendaozong exam. Dai Bufan yawned. After checking half of the candidates, he wondered why he hadn't seen even one person with a single spiritual root. Had they all been taken away by other sects? Then, confidently, Meng Jingzhou stepped forward. Dai Bufan did not expect much, but when he placed his index and middle fingers on Meng Jingzhou's wrist, his eyes suddenly widened, and he jumped up, exclaiming, It's a single! At that, people below began to talk. It turned out to be a single spiritual root. What does a single spiritual root mean? It means that the limits in each stage of cultivation are much looser than for others, making it destined for one to become a great cultivator. In government, such a person could hold high positions. In the wild, they could control an area and even become a ruler. Everyone focused on Meng Jingzhou, their eyes filled with excitement. Making friends with someone like him early on could only be good. The elders quickly advised the younger ones that once they join Wendaozong, they must build a good relationship with Meng Jingzhou, a Meng family member with a single spiritual root who is also a disciple of Wendaozong. These 3 identities together mean that he is sure to become an important figure in Wendaozong in the future, a great cultivator whose name will be remembered. Single spiritual root. Dai Bufan announced the full name of Meng Jingzhou's spiritual root, and the room fell silent. Meng Jingzhou was furious. What is this single spiritual root nonsense? Does that mean I'll be single for life? I may not know much, but don't label me. Meng Jingzhou's veins bulged as he slammed the table in anger. Junior brother Dai, Please do not tease him, said a soft, ethereal voice. Yunji appeared from a wisp of mist and glared at Dai Bufan. Feeling nervous, Dai Bufan shrank back. Only then did Meng Jingzhou calm down a little. He thought, surely Dai Bufan is just playing tricks. Yunji then said to Meng Jingzhou, but junior brother Dai wasn't lying. You really have a single spiritual root, this is its formal name. However, in the cultivation world, people prefer to call it by its common name, the pure yang spiritual root. Meng Jingzhou. He finally understood why the clan elders and his parents had never told him about his spiritual root. It turns out you only learn about it when you join one of the 5 immortal sects. They were clearly too embarrassed to tell you earlier. No wonder after testing your constitution, your parents asked if you wanted a younger brother or a younger sister. A mutated single spiritual root. A pure yang spiritual root. Unyielding and pure yang. The enemy of ghosts and demons. Keep a pure yang body and your cultivation will advance quickly. Break your pure yang body and your cultivation will fall rapidly. Chapter 3. Clearly an honest person. Why does the common name sound even more like a formal name? Lu Yang whispered his complaint from behind. Because the very first senior with a pure yang spiritual root called his own root the single spiritual root. Yun Ji, whose skills were beyond measure, heard Lu Yang's whisper as if it were spoken right beside her. Yun Ji paused, then added, in the world of cultivation, we have a custom of respecting senior, single masters. It seems that saying this extra line makes the explanation more convincing. Meng Jingzhou passed the first stage without any trouble. After him, it was Lu Yang's turn. Ha! Another single spiritual root. Dai Bufan's eyes narrowed. He had just complained that after much effort he hadn't met even one person with a single spiritual root, and now there were 2 in a row. Me, a single spiritual root? Lu Yang pointed at himself. His heart pounded, and he felt as if he were hearing things, while a smile crept onto his face. That's right, you have a mutated single spiritual root. A sword spiritual root. Dai Bufan nodded confidently. He had not found any flaw when checking your bone structure. A sword spiritual root is naturally of the sword type. Sharp, unstoppable, and great for attack. Senior sister Yunji looked at Lu Yang with some surprise. She had agreed to ride in the carriage on a whim, never expecting that the 2 people in the carriage would both be top talents in cultivation. The others began to stare eagerly. They started planning for girls around Lu Yang's age, wishing they could take him into their own groups by marriage. Unlike Meng Jingzhou, who had the backing of the Meng family, Lu Yang was clearly born a normal person with no support. With his excellent talent but no powerful backing, he was the perfect candidate for a marriage alliance. And most importantly, he could get married and have children. Noticing the strange looks on everyone's faces, Lu Yang quickly moved on to the second stage. Behind Dai Bufan stretched a bamboo forest. The second stage would take place there. So, what kind of spiritual root do you have? Meng Jingzhou, now out of the shadow of being just a single spiritual root, eagerly asked Lu Yang. But who cares about a single spiritual root? On the path to immortality, there are many hardships. Beauty and pretty maidens are nothing but fleeting illusions. He didn't need them. As for Lu Yang, although he passed the first stage, he was probably the only one in his class with such extraordinary talent, even if he only had a double spiritual root. As an unmatched genius with a single spiritual root, he felt he should look after those with average talent. Sword spiritual root. Damn it. Lu Yang was confused. After a short while, people from the back began entering the second stage one after another. Dai Bufan eliminated those whose bone structures did not meet the standard. Listening to the discussions from behind, it seemed a few more people with special constitutions had appeared. Before anyone could ask for details, senior sister Yunji suddenly appeared before them, lightly saying, "Now, we begin the second stage." And then she vanished, leaving everyone puzzled. Thick fog began to rise, like swirling smoke and rolling waves, vast as water. It was as if a huge sheer net covered everything in the bamboo forest. Everyone tried to struggle, but it didn't help. They felt weak, and their senses started to fade. This was the illusionary bamboo forest, a part of the sect's protective formation. There was no way that people like them could fight against it. With a casual gesture, Yunji drew a circle that cleared the fog in a small area. The Wendaozong disciples stood behind her as she spoke. Dai Bufan chuckled. Getting caught in the illusionary bamboo forest makes them forget who they are, forget the test, forget everything. It makes them show their truest selves. I wonder how many will pass the second stage this time. I hope more of them pass. There are several promising talents in this group. It would be a shame if they all failed here. Yunji never kicked Meng Jingzhou and Lu Yang out of the test. That was because the exam given to Meng Jingzhou was not from this year, but from 20 years ago. I don't even know which elder handed these out, someone muttered. Junior brother Dai, who do you think will pass the second stage? Of course, that ancient barbarian. The ancient barbarians are famous for their pure hearts and unquestionable character. I think the one with the single spiritual root and the sword spiritual root is pretty good too. He looks like an honest, straightforward guy. Yunji recalled the scene of Lu Yang and Meng Jingzhou discussing how to cheat in the carriage, and she thought that neither of them really seemed like honest people. Where am I? The burly ancient barbarian named Meng, who looked around in confusion, forgetting what had just happened. He held an old, worn axe in his hand and stood by a river. The small river sparkled beautifully. The sun set, and the moon rose again and again. Young man, I am the river spirit. Did you just drop this old axe? Or the spirit tool mountain cleaving axe? Or the celestial tool heaven splitting axe? The river spirit asked. The spirit tool mountain cleaving axe and the celestial tool heaven splitting axe are two famous axes on the central continent. Even a normal person with no talent could rise to great heights if they obtained one of these axes. Mangu blurted out, "It's the old axe." The river spirit smiled slightly. "You are a truly honest young man. Then all three axes are yours." Mangu had passed the second stage. See, I told you Mangu would pass the second stage. Now let's see how the one with the single and sword spiritual root will choose, Dai Bufan said excitedly. The second stage tested honesty. The pass requirement was to obtain all three axes. The river spirit was not an illusion. He was born from the small river that ran through the bamboo forest, a creature nurtured by nature. He took many forms within the illusion to test everyone. The river spirit liked honest people. There was only one way to pass the second stage. Answer his question honestly so that he would give you the three axes. How did the axe fall into the river? Lu Yang asked in confusion. He felt as if some unknown force had made him drop the axe. The river spirit appeared again and gently asked, "Young man, I am the river spirit. Did you just drop this old axe? Or the spirit tool mountain cleaving axe? Or the celestial tool heaven splitting axe?" Lu Yang squatted down and glanced over the three different axes. Then he looked up at the river spirit as if he were looking at someone foolish. His eyes filled with pity. "Two of these axes are yours. Don't you know which two are yours? And now you're asking me." The river spirit's smile stiffened. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. Finally, he replied, "I really don't know which two axes are mine." Lu Yang looked at the river spirit warily. "Then if I choose one axe, don't suddenly remember which two are yours." "I absolutely won't," the river spirit promised firmly. "Show me all three axes." The river spirit handed all three axes to Lu Yang. Lu Yang immediately threw the axes back into the river. "Can you ask your question again?" The river spirit, almost by reflex, asked, "Did you just drop the old axe? Or the spirit tool mountain cleaving axe? Or the celestial tool heaven splitting axe?" A smile spread across Lu Yang's face. "I dropped them all." The river spirit was silent for a moment, then gritted his teeth and said, "You are truly an honest young man. Then all three axes are yours." Chapter 4. Hand it over. "My axe." Meng Jingzhou shouted loudly in the illusion, trying to jump down and grab his axe. The river spirit lifted three axes and appeared on the surface of the river. "Young man, you..." Plop! Before the river spirit could finish his sentence, Meng Jingzhou dove into the water with a huge splash. The bubbles gurgling up were even larger than him. What's going on? The river spirit was confused. It was the first time he had seen something like this. The gurgling bubbles gradually faded away until they disappeared, leaving the river's surface eerily calm. Only the ripples from the river spirit's own aura could be seen. "Why isn't there any movement? He won't drown, right?" the river spirit muttered. He wasn't too worried about Meng Jingzhou actually drowning. After all, this was just an illusion. No one can really drown here. Before the river spirit could figure out what Meng Jingzhou was trying to do, another strange change occurred. The ripples on the river grew more frequent. The river spirit frowned. He had controlled his aura well, so these ripples couldn't have come from him. Then he realized, it's that kid who just jumped into the river. Strands of golden aura began to mix into the stream, and the water vapor on the surface exuded a faint celestial glow, as if some great terror were brewing deep below. That unknown terror sent shivers down his spine. Suddenly, 3 fountains burst from the river. rising higher and higher and spraying a light golden mist that filled the entire river. For a moment, the river spirit couldn't tell what was happening. Then, a wind from nowhere blew away the mist. 3 figures appeared, all looking like Meng Jingzhou, but their presence was completely different, as if everything had turned upside down. The river spirit trembled, an instinctive reaction deep in his soul. There was the ordinary Meng Jingzhou, the great cultivator Meng Jingzhou, and the immortal Meng Jingzhou. This was the basic rule of the illusion. When something falls into the river, it transforms into 3 forms: mortal, spiritual, and immortal. Hand them over, all 3 Meng Jingzhou said in unison, each taking the axe meant for him. With the immortal Meng Jingzhou present, the river spirit was completely powerless. He could do nothing. The immortal Meng Jingzhou took the celestial tool, the heaven-splitting axe. The great cultivator Meng Jingzhou took the spirit tool, the mountain-cleaving axe. And the ordinary Meng Jingzhou, pretending to be mighty, snatched the old, worn-out axe while the river spirit was still reeling. With all 3 axes in hand, the illusion shattered and Meng Jingzhou passed the test. Everyone who passes the second stage will temporarily fall unconscious. It's the body's way of protecting itself. The members of Wandaozong looked at Lu Yong and Meng Jingzhou, who had passed the second stage, and remained silent for a long time. Where are the honest ones, they wondered. Yunji said nothing. She had a premonition that if these 2 were admitted into Wandaozong, the sect would never have a peaceful day again. Hopefully her premonition is wrong. Then the real river spirit appeared, holding 2 axes made of gold and silver, and charged angrily toward Lu Yong and Meng Jingzhou. As the guardian spirit of Wandaozong, he had never been so humiliated before. Don't get in my way. Today I'll teach these 2 little brats a lesson. I'm going to cut off their arms and legs and take them back, he roared. The Wandaozong disciples quickly rushed in to stop the furious river spirit. Elder River Spirit, you must not cut them. Elder River Spirit, please calm down. If anyone in the test gets hurt, our Wandaozong's reputation will be ruined. In the end, it was Dai Bufan who stepped forward to restrain the raging river spirit. Rest assured, Elder River Spirit. I, Dai Bufan, designed the 3rd test myself, and I will definitely teach these 2 a lesson, he promised confidently. Seeing Dai Bufan's firm assurance, the river spirit finally backed down. The 3rd test, as the grand finale, had 2 plans. One proposed by Yunji, which was gentle, and one by Dai Bufan, which was rather harsh. Both tested one's Dao heart. After a vote, everyone unanimously chose Yunji's plan. However, Yunji's plan was too gentle, in that, even if someone failed, there would be no punishment. To appease the river spirit's anger, they had no choice but to choose Dai Bufan's plan. Yunji didn't mind that at all. Letting these 2 little guys suffer a bit might be good. During the 2nd test, many people were eliminated. Facing the temptation of the 3 axes, many lied to the river spirit by claiming that they had dropped the heaven-splitting axe and the mountain-cleaving axe. Those who were eliminated left the illusion, complaining that Wandaozong's 2nd test was too hard. But not everyone complained. For example, those who passed the 2nd test did not. The 2nd test was pretty simple, Mangu said. Just be honest, that's all. Everyone waiting for the 3rd test nodded, agreeing with Mangu. What? We aren't supposed to jump into the river and grab the axes from the river spirit? Meng Jingzhou shouted. Why does everyone do it differently than me? Lu Yong rolled his eyes at Meng Jingzhou, thinking he was really foolish. If the river spirit weren't an illusion but truly existed, wouldn't you have provoked him? You should do like me. Take the river spirit's axes and throw them all into the river. That way, all 3 axes count as having been dropped by us. Meng Jingzhou suddenly understood. You're so much smarter. Everyone silently watched Lu Yong and Meng Jingzhou as they discussed their method, and began to wonder if their approach to passing the test was wrong. Mangu nodded slightly. He remembered his father once saying that the ancient barbarians nearly went extinct because they were arrogant and uneducated. As descendants, they must overcome that flaw by humbly learning from others. Mangu felt that he had finally found someone worth learning from. Just as everyone was discussing the correct way to pass the test, Yunji and the other Wandaozong disciples, including Dai Bufan, appeared. With a slight smile, Dai Bufan flicked his hand, and a mountain the size of a palm appeared. As if fed by the wind, it grew quickly, and within a few breaths, it reached a height of 100 zhang. Everyone murmured in amazement. Such a display was rare even among cultivators. The mountain was covered in dense, lush trees, just like a real mountain. One side even had a long staircase leading straight to the top. This is called Wenshin Mountain. I had an elder create this marvelous object. On Wenxin Mountain, immortals and mortals are equal. All you need to do is climb it. The higher you climb, the stronger your determination, he explained. Reach the 50th step, and you pass the test. Someone asked, but doesn't that give Mangu an advantage? The 15-year-old Mangu had the physique of someone 25 or 26. He was much taller than the others. In climbing, his long strides meant each step was worth 2 of others. Dai Bufan laughed. Don't worry, Wenxin Mountain will level everyone's physical abilities. Whether you're a mortal or a cultivator, on my Wenxin Mountain, you'll all be ordinary. Is there a time limit? Another person asked. No, he replied. Everyone was pleased. No time limit meant they could try as many times as they wanted. What was there to worry about in passing the 3rd test? Could it be that this 3rd test was just for show? Can we use magical treasures? Someone asked. They had special clan-gifted items that could be used without needing spiritual energy. A great advantage. Dai Bufan smirked with a hint of glee. Yes, you can, if the magical treasures still work. Chapter 5. I think the 3rd test is a test of wisdom. When everyone reached Wenxin Mountain, most felt nothing unusual, except for Mangu. He clearly felt his strength fading, as if all his physical abilities were becoming like everyone else's. The boiling ancient barbarian blood inside him had calmed down and could no longer give him a steady flow of power. Everyone looked at each other and then turned their eyes to the strongest, Mangu. I'll go first, Mangu said. Seeing all eyes on him, he didn't hesitate and became the first to climb. Step after step, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, all the way to the 10th step. The first 10 steps were very easy for Mangu, but starting at the 11th step, the pressure began to build. He felt as if he were carrying a heavy stone slab on his back. The higher he climbed, the heavier it became. Still, he could bear it. He kept climbing. After a couple of deep breaths to steady himself, Mangu moved on to the 20th step. At the 20th step, his steps grew more labored and his pace slowed. By the 29th step, sweat began to drip from his back, soaking his clothes. He had to stop, catch his breath, and sit on a step to rest. Even sitting down, I still feel the pressure, he muttered through gritted teeth. Now, instead of standing with the weight on his back, he was sitting with it, and his recovery was very slow. Seeing Mangu struggle so much made everyone realize that this mountain was very hard to climb. Their hearts sank a little. One person said in a low voice, I heard an elder in our tribe mention that Wenxin Mountain tests a seeker's heart. The purer your heart is, the stronger your determination. If even Mangu, who comes from the ancient barbarian tribe and is known for his stubborn nature, finds it so hard, then we will have an even tougher time. Another suggested, maybe a quieting heart mantra can help calm our minds. Would that work? The 3rd test only requires reaching the 50th step. It isn't a race. No one is competing against anyone else. Everyone nodded, agreeing that it was a good idea. Their elders had taught them similar mantras to help with self-cultivation and calming the mind. Lu Yong opened his mouth, but he didn't know any quieting heart mantra. Do you want me to teach you one? Asked Meng Jingzhou. Lu Yong shook his head. Not now, I'll try to find another way. Seeing that, Meng Jingzhou did not press the issue. After meditating for a long time, Meng Jingzhou awoke feeling an unprecedented calm in his heart. The quieting heart mantra worked. He could meditate longer than most. When he opened his eyes, the others were already around the 20th or 30th step, sweating heavily and struggling to move forward. Big drops of sweat covered their faces. Some couldn't even wipe their faces. Some tried another idea. They thought maybe the pressure was only on the steps. So they tried walking along the side of the mountain instead of on the steps. But when they reached the side, they discovered that this method didn't work. The higher you go on Wenxin Mountain, the greater the pressure everywhere. Others tried using magical treasures, but found that the treasures had lost their power. No matter how amazing the treasure might be, it couldn't be activated now. It was nothing more than a pile of useless metal. No wonder Dai Bufan wasn't worried about them using magical treasures. Lu Yong fell behind everyone else, which made him very noticeable. He was barefoot and squatting on the 10th step, lost in thought, as if he were observing something carefully. What are you doing? Everyone else has climbed so far, Meng Jingzhou asked curiously. Lu Yong said nothing but held a shoe in his hand. Then he tossed the shoe, and it landed on the 11th step. Pick it up and try it, he said. Meng Jingzhou didn't understand at first, but he obeyed. Soon he noticed that the shoe felt heavier on the 11th step than before, as if something below was pulling it down. He began to understand. He tossed the shoe to the 12th step and found that while the falling speed was the same as on the 11th step, when he picked it up, it felt even heavier. "Do you see a pattern?" someone asked. Meng Jingzhou frowned and said, "When an object doesn't touch the ground, it doesn't feel extra pressure. Only when it lands and contacts the ground does extra pressure come into play, right?" "Exactly," Lu Yang said, punching his palm in delight. It was rare to meet someone who thought like he did. In his calm state, Meng Jingzhou quickly came up with an idea. "The steps are sloped, and there are many trees here. We could build a Z-shaped ladder, with one end fixed in the ground and the other reaching all the way to the 50th step." Lu Yang said confidently, "Yes, this third test is clearly meant to test our wisdom. This is the right answer." Meng Jingzhou understood Lu Yang's idea, but then asked another question. "How are we going to cut down trees?" They had no axe or saw to cut trees for the ladder. "Do you have any sharp magical treasures on you?" Lu Yang had already thought of that. He had considered working with others, but no one else understood his idea. Meng Jingzhou then took out a dagger. "This is one that an elder gave me for protection. It can be activated by thought with speed similar to the Golden Core stage, but here on Wenxin Mountain it won't fly." "That's fine, as long as it's sharp," Lu Yang said with a smile. In the Meng family, even if their magical treasures could not be activated, they were still much sharper than ordinary axes or saws. It was perfect for cutting trees. "Come over here. While you were meditating, I already drew a blueprint," Lu Yang said. He took Meng Jingzhou to a patch of soft sand where his drawing of a Z-shaped ladder was laid out. After a brief discussion, the two began to work. The Meng family dagger was very sharp indeed. Large, thick trees were cut as easily as paper. Soon, the two had turned the trees into wooden boards with an unusual shape. In the area of Wenxin Mountain, both cultivators and ordinary people only have the most common trees to use. Soon Meng Jingzhou encountered another problem. "How do we connect these wooden boards? We don't have any nails, and even if we did, they wouldn't hold such thick boards together." "Have you ever heard of a mortise and tenon joint?" Lu Yang asked. "No," replied Meng Jingzhou. Lu Yang sighed. He took the dagger and carved the edges of the boards into a mortise and tenon structure while explaining, "This part that sticks out is called the tenon, and the part that is cut in is the mortise. Together, they form a joint that is very strong without any nails." Meng Jingzhou listened very carefully. In the Meng family, when making magical items, they used spiritual energy and alchemy instead of mortise and tenon joints. Up on the steps, everyone was sweating and out of breath, all trying to reach the 50th step and be the first to pass the test. Perhaps the first one to pass would catch the eye of Wen Daozong and receive special training. They also understood why there was no time limit. The physical effort required to climb was enormous. If one stayed too long, they would become so weak they could barely stand, let alone climb. Down below, two people were also sweating and panting as they chopped down trees. After many trials and errors, they finally built the ladder. The ladder looked strange. Thin at the top, thick at the bottom, and its end was curved. It wasn't so much a ladder as it was a huge Z-shaped structure. The bare land around them looked as if it had been nibbled away by a giant pig demon. Some Wen Daozong disciples secretly glanced at Dai Bufan. They remembered that Brother Dai loved to boast about his lush Wenxin Mountain. Dai Bufan's eye twitched, and he unconsciously clenched his fist. Chapter 6. Senior Brother Dai, please calm down. Lu Yang and Meng Jingzhou squatted on the ground, using their daggers to dig a pit and bury the bottom of their ladder in it. They then stomped the ground to pack the soil. Lu Yang kicked the ladder hard. It didn't budge at all. Instead, the kick made his right foot go numb. "Not bad, it's very sturdy. I'll try first. Once I succeed, you can go up," he said. "Sure." Meng Jingzhou nodded. After rubbing his hands, Lu Yang quickly made his way up the ladder. Phoenixes. Because it is so explicit, the dragon and phoenix clans jointly complained. The book was banned, and I thought all copies had been destroyed. I never expected one to still be hidden here. I don't know who kept it. In other words, this was a forbidden, risque book. Lu Yang could only think, damn that dragon and phoenix and harmony nonsense. He suddenly remembered that the senior had warned that anyone who dirties a book must pay for it. Chapter 9, The Central Continent. "Do I have to pay compensation?" Lu Yang asked nervously. He felt that, on his body, the most valuable part was probably his brain. Compensation. A senior brother glanced at the book in his hand, then at Lu Yang, and his eye twitched sharply. According to the rules, one indeed must pay with spirit stones. But the real issue was this. If this book were to get out, The dragon and phoenix clans would soon join forces and storm in from the demon domain to attack the central continent, and even make their way to Wendaozong. Even though Wendaozong isn't afraid of the dragon and phoenix clans. After all, dragon livers and phoenix marrows are said to be delicious and can nourish one's yin while boosting one's yang. The sect is a respected institution. Having a forbidden book like Dragon Phoenix Transformation in the Scripture Pavilion would ultimately tarnish its reputation. With that in mind, the senior brother silently slipped the book into his sleeve, his face calm. Compensation? What book did you soil? I didn't see anything. Books destroyed inside the Scripture Pavilion would trigger the defensive formation, so it was better to take the book outside for destruction. In that instant, Lu Yang understood the crucial point. The senior brother intended to keep the book for himself. The two exchanged a look and smiled, as if they truly understood each other's meaning. The forbidden book was just a small side history, and Lu Yang hadn't forgotten why he came to the Scripture Pavilion. After searching for a long time, he finally found a book that introduced the central continent, a treatise on the geomancy of the continent. Lu Yang rubbed his hands excitedly and began to read carefully. In this world, there exist humans, demon tribes, ghosts, and more. The central continent is the gathering place of the human race. The greatest power here is the Daxia dynasty, the only nation on the central continent. It suppresses the human chi flow and represents the orthodox line of humanity. That being said, even though my home is near Wendaozong, it still lies within the territory of the Daxia dynasty. To the east of the continent lies a vast ocean dotted with scattered islands, from which ancient demon beasts like Kuanping and Chaos sometimes emerge. To the west is the Golden Buddha Kingdom, a boundless pure land with countless temples scattered like pebbles. To the south is the demon domain of the demon tribes, where the dragon and phoenix clans reign supreme. The demons are cruel and bloodthirsty. The Daxia dynasty is in constant friction with the demon domain, and some demons even hide within the Daxia dynasty, becoming a blight upon humanity. To the north lies the far north, where ice never melts, not a blade of grass grows, human footprints are rare, and few other creatures appear. Only the most resilient races can survive there. On the central continent, humans are the most numerous, and so are cultivators. Some cultivators choose to serve in the government, while most opt to found their own sects or join an existing one. Numerous sects dot the central continent. Among them, the most powerful are Wendaozong and the other four of the 5 great immortal sects, the leaders of the righteous path. The book also states that among the 5 great immortal sects, there must be at least one cultivator at the tribulation stage and a method to match that strength. Could it be that our sect master is already a tribulation stage expert? Or perhaps Wendaozong secretly possesses a supreme elder of that caliber? Thinking that he was fortunate enough to possibly be under a sect master who might be at the tribulation stage, Lu Yang felt a thrill of joy. He stood up, poured himself a cup of water, and, using the drink to steady his excitement, sat back down to continue reading. Demonic cultivators are bloodthirsty. They use the lives of others to fuel their own cultivation, causing more harm than the demon tribes themselves. In the end, demonic cultivators are those who cannot stand in the open. Hiding in dark corners, they are suppressed jointly by the Daxia dynasty and the 5 great immortal sects, so their sects only dare to act in secret and never show themselves. Besides demonic cultivators, the book mentioned a mysterious kind of being called evil demons. The text was very vague, saying that evil demons are born without compassion, like a dark shadow over humanity. One is advised to keep a distance. The description was so cryptic that Lu Yang couldn't quite grasp what an evil demon was. Mortal currency is made of gold, silver, and copper. For cultivators, spirit stones, divided into 3 grades, upper, middle, and lower, serve as currency. After that, Lu Yang began studying other common knowledge of the cultivation world. The criteria for different realms, the various arts of cultivation, types of demon beasts, levels of cultivation techniques, the history of the central continent, and more, based on the stories he had heard from the tea house storyteller. He knew that was far from enough to establish himself in the world of cultivation. So absorbed was Lu Yang in this profound knowledge that he lost all sense of time. It wasn't until evening, when hunger finally reminded him that he hadn't eaten in a full day, that he tore his eyes away from the book. At that moment, the senior brother at the entrance of the Scripture Pavilion had been replaced by a senior sister. Respectfully, Lu Yang asked, "Excuse me, sister. I'm a new disciple who arrived just yesterday, so I'm not very familiar with Wendaozong yet. Is there a place to eat here?" The senior sister was startled by Lu Yang's approach. She shivered and avoided his gaze, clearly shy about speaking. Typically, most people followed the rules of the scripture pavilion without reminders. Her quiet nature suited this place well. She lowered her head and replied softly, "Oh, you're a new disciple. Wandaozong does have a cafeteria, but as someone who's been here a while, I wouldn't recommend eating there." Lu Yang asked in confusion, "Why not? Is there something wrong with the cafeteria?" "In the Fifth Elder's Mountain, Balian Mountain," she explained. Lu Yang was taken aback. The name Balian Mountain didn't sound like a place for cooking or eating. "I wonder, what is this Balian Mountain?" The Fifth Elder is skilled in refining magical items, so Balian Mountain is naturally used for that purpose. The cafeteria is located on Balian Mountain, and the chefs there are also qualified refiners. Their steamed buns can pierce through mountains, rice grains can be used as hidden weapons, and their fried dough sticks are so powerful they can even break steel and bones. Lu Yang was dumbfounded. Why would chefs be able to work as refiners? The senior sister explained in a gentle tone, "Think about it, disciple. What's most important for a chef is controlling the heat, and a refiner is someone who is excellent at controlling heat. The two professions are more closely related than you might imagine." Lu Yang nodded sincerely. "That does seem more connected than I thought." Noticing Lu Yang's simple attire, the senior sister hesitated before adding, "Also, eating at the cafeteria requires spending spirit stones. You look like you aren't very wealthy." Lu Yang couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed, silently cursing his modest appearance. Chapter 10. Even the air at Danding Peak smells sweet. After saying goodbye to Zhou Lulu, Lu Yang arrived at Danding Peak. As soon as he reached the foot of the mountain, he was greeted by a strong, rich medicinal aroma. Not surprisingly, this is Danding Peak. Even the air here is filled with fragrance. Even the legendary Divine Havens and Celestial Islands only compare to this, Lu Yang thought. He couldn't help but take a couple of deep breaths, feeling his body grow light, as if he were about to ascend to immortality. "Disciple, don't breathe in so deeply," a voice shouted from not far away. The speaker, seeing that Lu Yang had taken extra breaths, sounded very anxious. "Disciple, hurry up and use the turtle breath technique. Oh, you seem to be immortal. Quickly cover your nose. This smell is from a failed alchemy experiment. I accidentally released poisonous fumes." That was the last thing Lu Yang heard before he fainted. "What kind of place is this, where even the air smells poisonous?" He mumbled as his body wavered, the world spinning around him. Soon his eyes went black, and with a heavy thud, he collapsed onto the ground. In reality, whether the air smells good or not does not guarantee it is safe. When Lu Yang finally came to, he saw a large face looming before him. The sight startled him so much that he jumped awake. The person, looking a bit embarrassed, chuckled softly, "Disciple Lu, you're awake now. It doesn't hurt anymore, does it?" On his jade pendant, his identity was clearly marked. Lu Yang blinked slowly, feeling his whole body ache as if he had been kneaded into a ball and then rolled out with a rolling pin. He soon realized he was in an alchemy room. The room was filled with a dense fragrance of herbs and was much warmer than the outdoors. In the center stood a huge alchemy furnace. Around it were shelves loaded with bundles of herbs and white porcelain bottles that probably held successfully refined pills. Piles of rough sketches showing pill-making methods lay on the floor, along with small white mice kept in cages, so cluttered that a newcomer would have trouble even finding a place to step. There was only one bed in the alchemy room, the very bed on which Lu Yang now lay. "My name is Wu Ming." "I'm sorry, disciple," said a voice. "While I was refining pills, I got lost in thought and lost control of the flame. I ended up turning the pills into poison. But don't worry, although I sometimes accidentally make poisonous pills, not once have they ever killed anyone," Wu Ming added proudly. That made Lu Yang even more worried. With great effort, Lu Yang managed to get up. He shifted his position and leaned against the corner where the bed met the wall to feel a little more comfortable. Scratching the back of his head, Lu Yang finally asked, "Since I only inhaled poisonous fumes, why is there bandage wrapped around the back of my head?" Wu Ming explained awkwardly, "When I was carrying you, I momentarily lost focus and you hit your head on the ground. Don't worry too much. As long as you're alive, here on Danding Peak, you can be cured. I must warn you," Wu Ming continued. "The pills I have right now are too potent for you. While you were unconscious, I specially refined some pills that even mortals can take safely." He then offered Lu Yang 2 small pills as if presenting a treasure. The pills were a brilliant golden yellow, decorated with 3 circular rings. a mark that signified the pill had been refined to near perfection. Still, Lu Yang was too hesitant to take them. He had only come to Danding Peak to ask for a few fasting pills, and now he was already lying on a bed with bandages on his head. If he took any more, even the king of hell might say he was courting death. Really, they're not poisonous, I promise, Wu Ming insisted repeatedly. Seeing that Lu Yang was not convinced, Wu Ming picked up a small white mouse to demonstrate. The little mouse, as if it knew its time was near, squeaked frantically when Wu Ming picked it up, as if saying goodbye to its family. After the mouse swallowed a pill, it collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Its mate and offspring began to cry pitifully, as if they were witnessing their own fate. Lu Yang was at a loss for words. Wu Ming, equally silent for a moment, finally said, "It was just an accident. The little mouse is very small. Even a little poison can kill it. A human would react very differently. I know what went wrong. Just wait a moment, and I'll refine another batch for you." Quickly, Lu Yang tried to change the subject. "Senior brother, you said you lost focus while refining because you were deep in thought. What were you thinking about?" Wu Ming, happily diverting the conversation, summarized, "Pills, pills. The key is in the word medicine. Pills are meant to heal, but fasting pills are not for treating the sick. So why are they still considered pills? If fasting pills count as pills, then pills are not just for healing, they can even replace a meal. But if fasting pills are not pills, then what category do they belong to?" Lu Yang felt that unless he put his brain into an alchemy furnace for 3 days and 3 nights, he could never figure out such a problem. Speaking of fasting pills, Wu Ming continued, "The only fasting pills available for mortals here come in strawberry, apple, and watermelon flavors. Would you like some? They're non-poisonous." He then produced a handful of colorful sugar beans. Remembering the dire warnings about his own fate, Lu Yang decided not to accept Wu Ming's gift. At Danding Peak, many people were practicing the art of refining fasting pills, and no matter who made them, their safety was higher than that of Wu Ming's work. "Disciple, if you ever need help with refining pills, come see me. I won't charge you a penny," Wu Ming said warmly as he saw Lu Yang off. Lu Yang then hobbled away as fast as he could. The next day, upon hearing of Lu Yang's unfortunate incident, the 7th elder of Danding Peak sent him a proper pill that could truly cure a mortal, along with a gourd full of fasting pills. Lu Yang recovered. During the following month, Lu Yang kept very busy. He spent his time going back and forth between the scripture pavilion, Yan Chuan Peak, and his own cave, greedily absorbing all the cultivation knowledge he had never encountered before, as if a traveler in the desert had found a cool spring, drinking deeply in hunger. After 1 month, everyone successfully became disciples under various elders. Meng Jingzhou became a disciple of the 3rd elder. Mang Gu became a disciple of the 4th elder. Li Haoran, with his fire spiritual root, became a disciple of the 5th elder. And Tao Tianyi, with the immortal body, became a disciple of the 6th elder. This puzzled Lu Yang. He had thought that Mang Gu would, like Meng Jingzhou, become a disciple of the 3rd elder. Since the 3rd elder was famous for physical cultivation, no one dared to face him in close combat. With his ancient barbarian blood, Mang Gu seemed best suited for the 3rd elder's guidance. In contrast, the 4th elder was a scholar cultivator, known for his vast knowledge rather than his strength, so it was unclear why Mang Gu chose the 4th elder. The 5th elder was skilled in refining magical items, which fit Li Haoran and his fire spiritual root. As for the 6th elder, Lu Yang had never met her. He had only heard that she was breathtakingly beautiful and possessed an immortal body similar to Tao Tianyes. Yet the most eye-catching event was Lu Yang himself. He became a disciple under the mysterious sect master. It was said that the sect master had not taken a disciple for over 100 years and lived a carefree life. The disciples buzzed with rumors, wondering why the reclusive sect master would accept Lu Yang as his disciple. Under the envious gaze of everyone, senior sister Yunji led Lu Yang to Tianmen Peak, where the sect master resided. That concludes today's epic story from Xianxia Webnovel Audio. If you found the journey as thrilling as we did, please hit like, subscribe to our channel, and enable notifications for more mystical adventures. We're excited to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below about your favorite part. See you in the next chapter.